not there.
Yeah. Is there an is there
We're into the fall for sure. So we'll follow our agenda and, I understand Commissioner Bell will be in, but he will be later. Okay, so, let's go down, well, first of all, are there any introductions? Anybody here who doesn't know anybody? Make it real simple. Anyone online?
There's this one phone number. I don't know if that's one of our directors or that's it's an internal number.
Well, let's assume that we don't, that's the usual suspects. Fine here. And if you're new to this group, please speak up. If you wouldn't know anybody online who has not been to one of these before, leadership meetings. Doesn't sound like it. Okay, so we've got a couple of significant changes going on in the county, and you'll hear more about them today, right now, and also at our roundtable, budget roundtable Wednesday. So let's talk about our HR situation, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Starr.
Thank you. So as you all know, Jody has resigned and left the county. So Rachel and I are your interim HR directors, and we are sharing Jody's email. So I would like to reiterate the request that I put in email that when you need to communicate with us regarding an HR issue, please use the Jody email. That way, Rachel and I, it's easier for us to go through and parse out who's got which piece. So it just makes it simpler for us as opposed to you picking one of us and then we're exchanging emails based on who's picking up which aspect of it. And that's currently pretty fluid as to who's grabbing which aspect. So if you could please use that email, that would be super helpful for us as we sift through things. It will also make sure it's less likely to get delayed in getting a response because we are both checking that. So if one of us is tied up for 8 hours in a meeting or something, someone else will see it if you have a critical item. So it would be super helpful if you could please do that for us. The other request I have for you all is if you had an outstanding item with HR that you have not heard from us on, can you please email that Jody email with just the list of the items that you had in her request that you haven't heard about. We've been going through the email and finding as much as we can that relates to outstanding items. But in case we have missed something, please to reach out through that email and just say, hey, this is what's going on my department that I haven't heard about.
And the flag if it's urgent, we're in triage mode of which HR issues to deal with. So just let us know if it's a high priority and we'll start moving up.
Okay. And then the other thing I would just remind you and point everyone to that on Friday, the 13th of September, Jody did send out an email with the tasks that each of the other staff are lead on. And please feel free to continue to work with Mackenzie and Kelly and Mary Jo on things you've worked with them on historically. Don't feel like you have to now loop us in if it's something you typically work with them on. And if you're not certain, this email with Mackenzie coming in, I know there have been some things that have been shuffled, so you may not be certain which one she took on. So this email from the 13th has a nice little breakdown of each staff person and what their areas of leadership are. So please feel free to use that as well as we go through this. I'm going to talk a little bit about the job description work that we've been talking about for a while, but are there other questions before I move on to that project? Yes, sir, Jared.
Is there any plan for hiring a new director?
Yes, it is on the street. So we are working with Profman, and that was posted last week, I think.
Oh, so it is posted?
Yeah, it's posted.
Okay.
It went live last week. I think on Friday it went live.
Okay. Thank you.
So it is our intent to replace us as rapidly as possible with a new full-time person. We have also been exploring whether or not a temporary HR director can be found. So far with the 4 agencies I've contacted, the answer was no. But we are still reaching out to other temporary agencies to see if we can find one. That would certainly be preferable to Rachel and I quarterbacking this. But for right now, we're quarterbacking. So a great question. Thank you. Other questions before we just move on? Anyone online? Okay, not hearing any, then I'm gonna go ahead and just give us kind of a brief update. We've been talking for a while about the job description project, which we've also called the classification project, and we are working with Troop. And what we're doing in this project is going through, we're gonna ask every employee to review their job description against a survey questionnaire that will come from Troop. And the intention of this is to find out in a wholesale way, are there job descriptions that have changed? Where people are doing things that are not in their job description en masse, right? Where we're discovering that we simply have evolved and the job description has not evolved. So that we can make sure we get everything up to date with job descriptions. That also allows us to identify if we have individuals who are essentially working out of class, but that we don't realize it because of, again, the evolution of a job rather than the evolution of a job description. The other thing it's going to allow us to do is review our job families. So think, accounting tech 1, accounting tech 2, accounting tech 3, right? How are those working? Are we still utilizing our job descriptions the way they're set up in job families? Have we added things that maybe should be in a different position than they are? It gives us a chance to structurally look at all of our jobs and see if we're designed in the right way. And I was talking with Mary Jo, and she said she believes the last time we did anything with this magnitude around this work was in 2001. That since then we've done some pieces, but it's kind of been one-offs. And so we're looking to do this across the organization, hoping that it helps us create good job families, that creates good career ladders, which is something we know we want for our employees. When they come in, we want them to know that they can start here and work their way up in their career. We also want to make sure from a pay equity perspective that changes that have happened over here have not placed us in or out of alignment with pay equity for something that's in another job family. So this work will all be kicking off probably toward the first part of November. So we've got a little bit more structure to build with our consultant before these surveys start going out to employees. You will get a lead notification before they do. So this is your first heads up that this should come the first part of November, and this will also come out in an email for any directors that are not here today. And then you will, a week before the survey goes live, all employees will receive a notification that says, hello, guess what? We're going to do this great project with you and we need your support and your help. And it will also include their job description. So we will be sending them an email copy of their job description so they will have it in hand to do with the survey. Okay, so we'll probably end up sending that in the notification email and again with on the same day that we send out the actual survey. So we're going to do our best to make this easy for employees to track and follow that it is coming, that it is there. And then our ask is that you create time for those employees for about 45 minutes to an hour, according to the consultant, for them to sit with their job description and the survey and really have time to be thoughtful about if there is a match or if there is a difference. So, what will happen then is they'll have about 2 weeks to get that survey done, somewhere in the window of 2 weeks. If someone's on vacation, et cetera, we will work on that. Work with you on that. We understand sometimes there's going to be an individual here or there that struggles with that. But the intent is to not leave the survey open too long because then people just keep putting it on their to-do list for later. So it'll be open for about 2 weeks. Once that information comes in, then the consultant will start working through that to see if there are questions where people didn't answer something, where the answer seems at odds with what their job description is, and that will be worked with managers. So we're not just going to take an employee's description of here's what I do and say, okay, this job description must be different. We're going to work it with the manager to say, this is what's being reported. Does this seem accurate to you? So there will be interaction with this process. We're not doing it to you, we're doing it with you because this is an important, significant project for the county and we want to make sure we do everything we can to get it right. So I'll stop there because that's about as far into the project as I can sort of see right now with enough specificity to share with you. Questions on that? Yes, Don.
So Jody was working with the library to schedule time with the consultant, because we know we have structural issues we need to resolve. And we have some ideas about how we would like to resolve those. But that meeting never happened. And so I'm wondering, do you see that as something that you want happening before or after the process with with people going through the descriptions? I don't know that it matters much from a, process.
Right, I think probably after they go through the description. And I'm meeting with so I met with the person in charge of the project last week on Friday, and I will be meeting with the owner, who's kind of the architect of the project. And so I will ask that question because I had a similar question from HHS.
Okay.
They have some descriptions that they know structurally we need to work with. And so I'll be asking Jean, who I think she presented to us about reclasses a bit ago. So I'll be asking Jean about that bigger question of when we know, how are we handling that?
Okay. Sounds
Thank
great.
you. Good
Yeah.
question.
Thank you.
Does this include managers' job descriptions as well?
It will include managers' job descriptions as well. This is an attempt to do the entire piece of it. And electeds, I have to confirm we have job descriptions for all of us because I don't believe that we have an approved job description for commissioners, if I'm not mistaken. So there may be some gaps in electeds. If we don't have job descriptions, we're going to have to create a different process, and that will be working probably with Rachel to figure out the best way to go about that. Because like I said, I know we don't have one as a commissioner.
All I got was a magnetic thing to get through the door.
Yep, you're in. Go. So yeah, so there's gonna be, and part of what this study will I'm sure point out is where are we missing things? Where are the gaps? And I think that elected job descriptions may be one of the gaps that we're gonna figure out and have to work through.
Just put overseas on all the job descriptions.
Uh-huh. Anything else that comes up,
Yes.
right? That's all of us.
I do have another question.
Yeah.
You talked about positions evolving over the years. You
Yeah.
talked about taking a secondary look with managers.
Yep.
So I think I may know the answer to this question, but I'm assuming that every department here has people that do a job that has evolved into they themselves are doing the job of 2 or 3 other people. And so if they report it on this survey that they're doing all these duties, are you going to look at those as out of class, or are we going to try? I don't want those positions to be locked in simply because they've evolved to doing the duties of 3 or 4 people or 2 or 3 people. And I mean, I'm assuming every department has people like that. So we're not going to try to take that job description like, you have somebody that's doing all these different jobs that should be 2 or 3 people's jobs.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, a variety of reasons over the years, it's evolved to that. We won't lock that position in to doing those duties of 3 or 4 people simply because they said that on the survey.
No, so there's 2 things for that. One is the first question on the survey is whether or not you are currently working out of class and what duties you're doing that are out of class. So theoretically, and I realize this is maybe theoretically, anyone who is working out of class with extra duties from other jobs should be receiving an out of class pay per union. So hopefully they will mark that and tell us what they're doing. Alternately, if that's not how it worked because the duties were of comparable character and it wasn't determined to be out of class, it was just kind of a shifting of duties on a similar role, we'll be working with the managers to say, so this one looks different, right?
Well, there'll
This
probably
is
be a
the-
lot of people that won't know that they're even working out of class, if they even are, just because they've evolved and they've been doing it for so many years.
Sure. If they're getting out of class pay, then theoretically they would know.
Well, if they're getting out of class pay, yeah.
Yes, then they would know. But yeah, no, we will be working with managers. We have no desire to redesign job descriptions in departments in ways that managers and directors don't want that done. But it will give us an opportunity to talk about it because in some departments, I think they have been reorganized and it is long-term, but may not have been reflected in the job description. So this is our opportunity to identify and really intentionally design what we want.
It might be helpful to define out of class because some people may not know and they may not be aware that they're doing it, or they may think they're working out of class. But if you look at their job description, you might find out, like you said, there's something parallel or a
That's a good
similar duty.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll do our best. I think employees, there's an open comments box, and I think they're gonna let us know what they're thinking, which I think is probably extremely important for us to know what they're thinking about what they're doing in their job and whether they think it is or is not part of their job description. So, yeah, there's a lot to be learned, for sure. Thank you for the questions. Any other questions?
And I just wanted to say I'm a little surprised that it was said that we only did this in 2001 because I remember when Naomi was here, and I don't remember when that was.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of work and, for the managers that have a lot of staff and a lot of different positions. And it's hard to determine what, I may think that's out of class, but the HR director may not. And so those are, when you get down to those, well, what's really out of class, it's hard.
It
And
is
it's a lot
hard.
of work.
It is, and a lot of work was done when Naomi was here. My understanding was that was never all brought to fruition, right? A lot of people did a lot of work on job descriptions and getting information. And then when Naomi left, that just sort of sat. And so so for those who have already done a great deal of work updating your job descriptions, the good news is, hopefully your employees will say, no, I'm on track. This is actually what I do. And for your department, that will pay off. And for other departments who simply were too overwhelmed during that window to get to all of that body of work, we'll have a little bit more to do in this body of work. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of work was done, as I understand it. It just didn't get all brought together and finished.
Right, and it seemed like after that, the job description was supposed to have been sent out with the PAF and with the yearly
That's right.
review, and then that kind of stopped. So,
Yeah.
I think most of ours have been gone through recently.
Yeah, and that's been our challenge with the sort of revolving door, I think, of HR directors. And so hopefully with this project, we can bring that to closure. And if that's something we want to do, where job descriptions go out with PAFs and that's helpful, then we can look and see if that's a possibility. So I'm looking at Rachel so she can add that to our list. Our list of things for the future, we have that like in your face, do it now list. And then we have these are good ideas. Yeah, no one.
And I guess along those lines, are we asking the group we're working with to make recommendations on how to kind of have an ongoing process to deal with position descriptions and whatnot? Just so it's not we don't end up in the situation where we're like every 4 or 5 years, we're like, oh,
We gotta do it all.
Yeah.
We haven't set a plan. I do know other organizations that I sit on the board for do a few every year.
Yeah.
And that's certainly a possibility. The challenge is because all of ours are tied together with the pay equity thread, that we have to be very thoughtful about. If we update one set of job descriptions, if something in that hits a pay equity piece in another job description, that we need to make sure, whether we're changing job descriptions or changing the marketing for them, either one, that we are maintaining our consistency across the organization. So, yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's a great question for us to ask them, because this is their field of expertise. This is what they do.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other piece, is that this work is being done by outside experts. And so we will be obviously reviewing it, obviously having input. But at the end of the day, we're looking for them to bring us best practices in doing all of that work. But that's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions or thoughts?
Are you going to talk about the next steps further down the road for the market study?
So the intent was to complete this work by the end of December, and then to remarket our job classifications in preparation for bargaining with AFSCME. That is still our intent. We have to work through, our intent was to do that remarketing in-house. And I'm going to guess that that's going to be a bit of a challenge for us. So we need to go back as a board and discuss that. So that will be a conversation upcoming, but certainly the goal is to get the classification work done so that we can remarket for AFSCME before we go into bargaining. That would allow us to adjust and reflect any changes that have occurred in the job descriptions or the job families related to the AFSCME positions, as well as just updating to market, because we know the market has been very dynamic over the last few years. And we know that when we marketed, we hit a window, like a point in time. And of course, we will be hitting an additional and different point in time by remarketing. Is that what you, yeah, okay, perfect.
The whole picture.
The there are no other questions, my request would be to please keep your eye out for emails related to this, and I will try to mark them with the important and urgent. I know that everybody gets a lot of email, but it will be important that you're catching these when they come out so that you are aware, and they will be going to you, and then there'll also be an all staff one that's letting everybody know. But we will be relying on you as department heads to assist us, as we do anytime we send out a survey, in encouraging your staff to participate, and in this case, to participate honestly, openly. You know, we really want to get this right. So, thank you. Anything else, Rachel? That's what I had for HR for today, unless there are any other questions.
Commissioner Bell, would you like to take over on number 3, or do you want me to keep going?
Going. Thank you. Thank you for pinch hitting for me.
Okay, anytime. So number 3, we're talking about central services, which I'll offer some remarks on that, and then the other 2 commissioners can chime in as well. Almost every organization of any size, say from 30, 40, 50 employees or more, has some function that's either known as support services, central services, internal services, or whatever you want to call it. These are the groups that support the primary function. So if you have a widget factory, somebody has to do payroll, somebody has to worry about who's going to park his vehicles where, they're going to have to worry about the loading dock, they're going to have to take care of real estate matters and legal matters, and all those kinds of things that go on in support of the primary objective. And so we do that here, but I'm not too sure it's being done all that well. Not that the individual departments aren't doing fine, but the overall coordination, I think we're wasting some money, some time, some effort, some energy. And so as part of the strategic plan and the Portland State University study, that became pretty obvious to them. And they have said to us, you know, why don't you think about reorganizing what you would call central services and put it under one umbrella? And we think there'll be substantial efficiencies over some period of time that can happen. And so that's where we are. And the board has made a decision to formally adopt a resolution in order, or a motion, this is in order to make this happen and bring certain departments, at least at this time, possibly another 1 or 2 in the future, under this umbrella. And in order, and we think there'll be substantial efficiencies, if not directly financial, certainly in maybe in time and just the bureaucracy it takes to get something done. So like 2 large organizations where I've worked, I worked for a large school district, like the 4th largest in Washington State. And then I worked for Washington County, and they had one was called Central Services, one was called Support Services. In the school district, there was a great big warehouse thing, which was part of my job to run that. And we had a delivery driver who went to every school every day and delivered stuff, made 2 circuits a day. And at Washington County, same thing. They had a print shop and a whole bunch of other things. And we do the same thing slightly differently, but they're scattered. And each of you finds yourself independently making calls or saying, what's going on and why did this take so long, or could I make a change? And we think if that's under one umbrella, that it's going to make the organization better, and it's going to deliver what you need in a more timely fashion and make it easier to track stuff down. So having said all that, we're going forward on that. And I don't have a list of the departments here, but I think we can get them.
They're in that
And yeah, I do have them. And I'll mention that, and then I'll talk about how it's going to be run, and then I'll ask my fellow commissioners to chime in as well. So here's what would come under this umbrella initially. We would have the Board of Commissioners. We'd have the non-elected administration, meaning Debbie and Isabel, and then legal services. We now have, as you know, we have a part-time contract attorney and Bill. And then we have a salaried 4-day-a-week attorney in Joel, and he works primarily by remote control because he's located out of state. So we would bring those, we may not change who they are or where they are, at least initially. We'd bring that under that umbrella as well. And we'd have our facilities department, the HR, and then information services. And as you know, we're in the process of bringing in an IS director now. The interviews have been done, and I think we'll have a short executive session after this meeting to talk about some final decisions. So those are the groups that would be in initially. If you bring those people in, you need a leader, and I'm sitting next to the person here who will be our leader. And I'll say this about Rachel. We could have, we the board could have said, well, this is a new position. Let's open it up and go on the market. But the more we looked at it, and we also took advice from Portland State people who come to know our organization and our people, and we said right here in our midst, we have someone who is highly qualified, who's got the experience and can take over this department. So her title will change when this is done, from the chief of staff to the chief administrative officer, CAO. So, you know, in corporations, you have what's known as a C-suite, which is usually the top floor of a big building in some big city. And you have the CEO, the CFO, the CAO, and all those, that's why they call it the C-suite. Well, we have a C-suite, but only has one office, and it's in the corner of this room.
I would say you're the CEO, so there's three others.
Yeah, actually, the Board of Commissioners are still the chief executive officer collectively. No change there. But these administrative functions will bring under the umbrella of Rachel. And I think for me, having worked in private business and in my own business and back again into government, it does a couple of things. It shifts what the three of us do. And I don't know what the ratio is exactly. We can go more into policy and maybe a little less into administration. And that's probably a good thing, in my opinion, and perhaps the others as well, because what happens is we spend, at least I do, and I'm pretty sure they do as well, we spend a fair amount of time putting out fires and responding to this and that and the other thing. And that's probably not the best use of our time, and that may not be the best use of what the citizens want the commission to do. So there'll be a subtle shift at first, and maybe it will expand or change as this evolves. Time will tell. But in the meantime, maybe we could spend a little more time out in the community. We could spend more time planning 3 and 5 and 7 year horizons as compared with reacting to what happened yesterday and what are you going to do about it? Those kinds of things. So I'll stop talking and I'll pass it over to Commissioner Bell, and she's certainly got some thoughts on this as well. But from my point of view, this probably should have been done some years ago, but it wasn't. So here we are today. But I think Portland State has helped us recognize this, along with all of your input, that some things we're doing now could be done better. Not necessarily differently, but better. So that's where we are. So I'll take it over to Commissioner Bell.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. I want to apologize for being late. Rachel may have told you I'm stuck behind a bad wreck on Miami Foley, which I'm sure you can probably read about on Facebook now, but it was overturned log truck and a pickup, and it's a bad mess. So I brought you an apple cake that is a new recipe. My son tried it out for you this morning and said that he approves. You should like it. So at some point I'll run upstairs and get a knife. I am excited about this change because for several reasons, but I wanted to talk for a minute about that. The fact that it grew out of the work of this group. Most of you participated with us in the strategic planning work and talked about, you responded to surveys, you identified areas of concern, you helped us, when we had the big white papers and the sticky notes, we all voted on prioritizing our areas of concern, and they were financial planning, which we have begun that work, we're well into it now, and central services. That rose to the top consistently. We know everybody's working really hard, and the departments have been frustrated with the multiple things, with recruitment, with the timing of things, with difficulty problem solving, with, in some cases, Some departments feel like they're not getting a good value for what they're spending in indirect costs. So all of those things combined made it very clear that we should do something different with central services, that we as commissioners administering departments, it wasn't working very well. So it was working. I mean, we'd been doing it for a long time, but it wasn't too efficient. It wasn't ideal. So in collaboration, as Doug said, with Mike from PSU, he said, you guys are operating in an inefficient model. The people aren't the problem. The effort isn't the problem. The model is the problem. And so if you change the model, then you'll change the outcome. So we're doing exactly what Doug just said. So we have identified that we want to have a central services department that'll be an umbrella over those departments that Doug listed, and one person who's responsible for the operation of that. And the ideal person is already on staff, and that's Rachel. She knows our organization. She's ideal for the job. And for my part, if we had proposed, or if somebody had proposed, like, oh, you should go out and hire a county administrator, I would have been probably a no on that. Like, I don't know how we could justify adding another executive level position right now. And there's so much risk involved in, if you go, a county administrator who's great is great, but a county administrator who's not great causes a lot of problems. And we're already currently right this minute trying to hire 2 directors for important departments. So to be able to move Rachel into this role and have her work on how to redistribute some of her current responsibilities, try this out for an undetermined period of time, maybe 6 months, maybe that's not long enough, maybe a year, see how it's working for all of us, see how it's working for her, and to be able to have her job to go back to. If she decides she doesn't like it, it didn't work for her, she can go back to her job. And if it is very successful, which I suspect it will be, then we'll figure out the transition ultimately. But I'm very encouraged. I'm extremely optimistic, and I think that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. And I hope that soon all of you will recognize the benefit of it.
Thank you. I think my colleagues have explained it fairly clearly, but just, it is the strategic plan that you all worked on with us that has led to this. And if you haven't taken a look at the final strategic plan, it was on the agenda on Wednesday. So it's linked to the agenda. Is probably the easiest place to find it. I don't know if it's up on the intranet, or if we will be putting it on the intranet. So it will come up on the intranet. On the public facing website. It'll be on the website. It is attached to last week's agenda, but I don't think there's anything in it that should be too surprising, because again, it is the work that was done by this group, which is, to Commissioner Bell's point, one of the most exciting parts about where we're going is that we have spent the last almost 18 months together engaging in different combinations of this group, having done the survey to the entire group of employees to see if people felt like we were on the right track, and the answer was yes. So this is sort of what we've all agreed, and I'm excited that we're putting it into action. There was a lot of conversation at the board meeting about strategic plans that end up on the shelf, and there's a lot of time and energy put into this, and we don't want it to end up on the shelf. So we are moving forward, actually, for government pretty darn fast. I'm prone to saying that we're, pushing a square wheel made of stone uphill to get anywhere, and this actually feels like maybe we're not. Maybe we've actually come over the top and are headed down the other side. So I'm excited about that part. I'll elaborate a little further on the county administrator part, because I think for department heads, there's probably a lot of questions for you all as to exactly what will change. What is Rachel's role going to be? The answer is we don't know everything yet. The first thing that we're looking at doing is tasking Rachel with bringing us job descriptions for chief administrative officers in other settings so that we can define the right balance of that But at this point, what we have discussed based on Mike Gleason's recommendation is that commissioners remain the CEO of the county. We continue to have hiring and firing authority. We continue to have liaison departments. They will not be the ones that fall under central services, however. Those will essentially be Rachel's liaison departments, but we'll continue as liaison. And I think a good example is with the library. Commissioner Bell will continue to serve with the library board. She will continue to support Dawn. There will be a lot of pieces that she's actively engaged in as it relates to the library and how that goes out into the public. For myself, I'll continue to sit on the Health Council for HHS and continue to engage in that way, looking outward. But what we will be doing less of is looking inward, most likely, right? Where I'm not probably going to be working on HR issues with HHS. They're going to be working with HR, and if there's a concern, they'll be working with Rachel. So it's just kind of teasing it apart a little bit, pulling us out of some of those operations, but keeping us very firmly grounded in the work of the departments to which we are liaisons, supporting those directors, supporting the public, and supporting that interface so that we can actually get out and do more community-related, community direct service in support of our departments and in support of the public receiving what they need. So I'm excited about that part. I think that really can help us be the most effective in our community if we are spending less time trying to administer inside departments. So Rachel will, however, be bringing those job descriptions. We'll be teasing that apart and figuring out exactly what that looks like over the course of probably the next month or so, I think, based on this board order. Similarly, what will that central services model look like? That's also something we're tasking Rachel with. Go out there and look at other central service models, do the research, help us figure that out, and bring to us recommendations. And then as we need more information, we'll be asking Rachel, we'll be saying, well, that's really interesting. What about this, this, and this? And so there will be this back and forth that's going to occur at board briefings as we have those conversations, and we won't be approving anything until we're all confident and comfortable that we've defined it in the right way. So I am sure there will be interaction with this team as well as we are working through that, because we need to probably hear from department heads, how is this going to work for you? When we talk about putting this on this side and this on that side, what does that look like? Do you see things we don't see? So we've been engaged in this work together. We will continue to be engaged in this work together as we sort of redefine exactly what the model is that we're working with. And again, it's in the strategic plan. You know, we talked about under our governance, looking at our policies and procedures and how we do what we do. And this is a huge chunk of that in terms of how is our governance work. So I'm excited about it. I look forward to working with everybody as we do this and getting to a place where commissioners are supportive and that really we're making your jobs easier instead of harder. Because I think right now, sometimes that's not the truth. So hoping to move that forward.
So what you've heard is we're moving into what others have been doing for years and years and years. Nobody's really wheel. It's really a model that's proven elsewhere. So before we go on to the next one, let me ask Rachel if you would say, what do you think so far? And have you got any thoughts you'd like to share with this group about your changes?
Oh, with my decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would start by saying I think you all did a really good job capturing what we know for where we think we're going at this point. The one thing I would add at this point is and this is really important to me that you all know this, for me to be successful in this role, is that this is not a county administrator. If you're familiar with that model, the county administrator is kind of the CEO and all the decisions stop there. That person presents the budget, hiring and firing, more like a city manager position. And that is not what this is. And it's very important to me that even though we're going to be teasing out decision point changes, so I and you all may be getting decision authority that you don't have currently that the board has, or I have. And so we're going to be flushing that out. But at the end of the day, I want a path beyond me to the board for decisions to be appealed, for lack of a better word. So I'm not the decision maker on all of this stuff. So I just wanted to share that all with you. What I've been thinking a lot about my position. I think based on what my current workload is and looking at Isabel's workload and Debbie's workload, my projects have been kind of waning as they've come to, and that's been intentional over the last couple of years anyway, as I've been wanting to dig into some other planning projects that will be able to scrap my position out. So I will keep some things I'm currently doing, things that Isabel is currently involved in, like contracts and districts. She'll be given more authority to do that stuff, so I don't have to literally sign contracts. Paying invoices, there's just a lot of day-to-day work that I don't think I have to be doing, that I can focus on working with you all. I want to meet with you all regularly, find out how the operations are going, and find out, you know, what you need and what your ideas are for making things better. So that's where I'm hoping I can really focus my time. I don't see property management under my purview necessarily. I should see maybe down the road a part-time or full-time position or a contractor that's doing property management and project management. I do think I will keep the radio project at least until that's funded, and then if the when the bond passes, get a contractor in place and that person can handle that project, which was kind of the plan I was working on anyway. Cape Kiwanda, there's some options there, but I think we can scrap my position out and some additional ideas on that, but does that help?
Yes. So let me, before we move on, Lynn, are there any questions for the three of us and Rachel on this? It's a reasonably significant change, but I certainly think it's for the better. So who's got a question?
More just to comment that I'm glad that this is happening, and that, you know, coming into the county, one of the things that was hard to figure out early on, there were things that you should be going to Rachel for. And I didn't, like, for a while, I was like, it took me about 6 months to be like, oh, these are all things that sit with Rachel. And I think the title will help people coming into the organization understand that. Because looking at the job titles and kind of the organizational structure, it was a little bit hard to understand before. And so I know there's new pieces that come along with this, but I think just being able to understand and identify that and be able to, and especially if you're meeting with people regularly, that will also make it easier. So that'd be great.
Anybody else? How about online? Anybody online have questions about this change?
Just a comment, and you know, we're doing these budget meetings, right? Where we're asked to look at combined departments, look at cutting positions, look at cutting services. So what might you advise us telling our staff, because it does look, you know, you're creating a department, you're creating a position. So how do we respond to that this will be the best thing financially for the county and will help us achieve that goal?
Well, that's a good question. My view is take the longer view. She'll probably negotiate some sort of a salary increase. And for my part, I would support that because we're going to give her more responsibility and accountability both. So the X dollars increases the opposite of what we're trying to do, which is just in the general fund, and this remains in the general fund, bring it back under control. But if you take the long view, I think it's one of several steps that we'll be taking to get our hands on or get around the issues of revenue matching expenditures. And so, yes, on its face, it looks like, well, here we are, the board itself is doing exactly the opposite that we're asking everybody else to do, which is we're going to spend another X $1,000 on an upgrade in a staff position. So I would just ask you to take the long view and understand that part of a commissioner's job, in my judgment, is to not look at next week, next month, next year, but to look out 3 to 5, 7 years, something like that. And I see this as paying substantial dividends over some period of time. Measurable, I don't know, but operationally for sure. But that's a long answer to a simple question. So, you know, you can draw whatever conclusions you want. That yes, it will cost more money. But after our meeting this Wednesday, I think you're going to see some other things that will bring our arms around the problem, and we'll spend a fair amount of time talking about next fiscal year. This fiscal year, we've got something we can do, and we'll do it in the next 30 days. And we'll explain that on Wednesday. That will balance this year's budget with a little bit more. The next year is a problem because this is a $2 million issue. And so I just ask you to bear with us and work through each one, line item. I'll ask my fellow commissioners if you want to add to that, a long explanation or a simple question.
I think it's a great question and I appreciate your answer, Doug. I think also that we in discussing all of the possibilities for budgetary changes, we, in my view, may have, we put everything on the table, which I think is appropriate. It's appropriate to put everything on the table and say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? But of course, people who are worried for their jobs focused in on the scariest possibilities, i.e. the ones you mentioned, cutting hours, cutting people, positions, etc. Of course, people focused in on that who are worried about their jobs. Speaking for myself, I'll tell you that those would be, of our list of 54 possibilities or whatever, those would be on the bottom of my list. I think but I agree with the concept that everything is, that if we really want to solve problems, we should be considering all of our options. So I do agree with that. But I think that the change that we're making here may produce revenue. It may not, but it may produce revenue. For example, Mike Gleason was talking about having someone do a rate, now I've forgotten the term, but it was a rate case, which is something that I think Rachel could lead. A rate case would be figuring out justifying all of the rates that we charge for things and then getting them on a regular cycle for incremental increase. And Mike said that, over a couple of years in other governments he's worked with, that makes a huge difference. And there were multiple opportunities where if we had one person who was working on those issues, like a couple of the things that we identified in the last financial workshop were, I think you brought up at least one of them, Cassandra, was the vacant house tax.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of them that seemed like, wow, that sounds too good to be true. They might not be too good to be true. They might be for real. We should be doing that. We should have been doing it 10 years ago, but we haven't had one person that we could say, this needs to be your job and your priority to look at these opportunities. And maybe it'll be Rachel's, or maybe she'll be working with another thing we identified in the strategic plan is that we need a financial consultant to help us look at our financial view in the long term. And so I'm being vague, but what we believe is, and I think I can speak for all of us in this, we believe that this will dramatically improve our efficiency and could very well improve our financial position. Does that help at all?
Yeah, because I think it's a question we're gonna be asked by,
For
staff.
sure.
Absolutely. So I think it's good to put it out on the table and get the answers.
Doing things the way we've always done them gets us to where we've already been and where we are today. If we don't change how we structurally do things, we're probably not going to get a different outcome. So, and I realize that that's also vague and but that's really where we are, at this point, is we know if we go forward exactly the way we are, we know where we're going to end up. That path in front of us is clear. And working with all of you on best ideas, working with our consultant on best ideas, this is the path forward that's been recommended to try to change that, to Commissioner Bell's point. Having somebody whose job it is to get out there and dig into these things and help us find the right solutions, and have somebody, a single person who can have that as their charge, and then to bring back to us and commissioners and say, we've got some options. We can go this way, or this way. Gives us a chance to do something different and create a different outcome, including efficiencies and effectiveness. So that's certainly our hope.
So in the commissioner meetings right now, when, there's a new task, you'll assign it to Rachel. Will that still be, because she said her position's going away. So who's gonna be She's
so
still sitting there.
yes, she'll still be sitting there,
Okay.
yes. So she's parsing out pieces of what she does currently, as well as having some things like the Kiwanda project, right? That one is wrapping up with the parking lot. We haven't determined what's next. But so some of the big things that have taken large chunks of her time are not gonna be things that will be continuing forward, therefore not things that we need her time for. So there's, at this point, there's this shift. We're not gonna go out and hire another full-time person to be chief of staff. Rachel's going to shift in this chief administrative officer role, and some of there are things that are just kind of disappearing, and some things that Rachel will be doing. Properties, for example, is on hold anyway. We're not doing anything with our properties because of the Tyler v. Hennepin case, which has stopped us from dealing with sales and foreclosures, et cetera. So it's also a bit of a good time, if you will, when her workload was going to naturally drop, to just kind of shift her a bit, and then we could determine going forward, what do we have? What are we seeing with efficiencies, effectiveness, that sort of thing, to continue to develop a new way to operate that hopefully leads us to a better future financially.
Part of what you can tell your staff is that this is a reasonably active commission. We're not just treading water and going home at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whenever. In other words, as you just heard, what we've been doing all these years, Tillamook County, we're going to change the direction a little bit. And I think it's an incremental change, but it's significant, and it's at the top end, not the bottom end. And I think the things then will flow down. So if I were in your position, I would tell your staff is, hey, they're not just sitting by cashing their checks and setting up a World Series pool. They're doing a little bit more than that, and they're looking ahead, and, bear with us and see now I won't be here, but Paul will. And at some point, the board is ultimately accountable. And if this doesn't work out like we think, then it can be changed again. The county's not going anywhere. I would tell your employees or ask your employees, bear with us, give it a good try. It's a thoughtful approach that is done elsewhere with considerable success. It was recommended by people who've been in this business for 40 years, know what they're doing. And so we're going to try it. And we're going to try our best, and we're not going to accept the first failure. We're going to keep going. But at some point, there'll be a go, no-go decision, which might be 6 months or a year or whatever, like we said. But give it a chance.
Marlene's on my question.
Marlene?
I think it was just a comment. I am interested in seeing how this could work, given that in this department, I'm kind of doing the two roles, being the CEO and the chief administrative officer with our own IS, facilities, fleet, HR person coming on, all those. How to divide those out with, now 3 people are doing parts of those, and Rachel will be doing all of them. So when you have the staff call it the funnel effect, where the one person who all these have to go through now has more things. And so how can we be really thoughtful in the process, both not to overwhelm Rachel, but not to slow things down, or in the effort to create efficiency for one person, create more work for everyone else. So those are just the things that I have seen for myself with taking on the multiple roles. So I'm excited to see and to look into it, and happy to have those conversations with Rachel and others about how this could work out. So thank you. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. I think those are good comments. And my response to that, and the other commissioners can weigh in as well, it will be an evolving position. And Rachel will have to do just like she does now, is say, okay, I got 10 things on my plate. You can do 7 of them well. You can do all 10 of them and let something slip through the cracks. That will be her decision as an administrator to decide what gets pushed off. Ultimately, if something important is not getting done, she needs to come to the commission and say, look, I can't get this done. You've charged me with doing it. What are we going to do? Then you have 2 options. You can either hire staff, you can contract it out. Maybe a third option, you could ignore it. But if you ignore it at your peril. It's like anything else. What you start on Monday, and this is true, I think, of everybody in the room, what you think you're going to do Monday through Friday, I'll bet you $10 to 10 cents, you're doing something different during the week than you plan. Because that's just how things work. So I think Rachel is a good manager. I think she'll become a better manager simply by adjusting priorities on the fly. And that's what you do. And if something appears to be slipping through the cracks, it either rises in priority or you find another way to get it done. Or if you ignore it, then you identify the risks of ignoring it. I mean, it's just management 101. Any comments from my fellow commissioners? Yes, down there.
So is Rachel gonna get more decision-making authority? It's the CAO versus chief of staff. Are you gonna give her more decision-making authority, kind of like a city manager?
Well, I wouldn't use this term city manager exactly because it's not overarching. It would be overarching on these specific departments. And so, yes, I think she could make more decisions at that level. For example, let's take IS. And let's say there's a decision that may have come through the liaison in currently or previous years about what brand of computers to buy. And I'll just pick one, and maybe it's not on a state contract, and that person can make a case to Rachel. Rachel can make a decision, and she wouldn't necessarily have to bother the board. She could report to the board what she's gonna do, but not engage the board in that kind of a decision. To me, there's a fairly bright line between policy and operational. And we're asking her to enlarge her sphere of the operational side and don't bother us with the minutia. Maybe that's not a fair term, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Help me out here, commissioners. Let's go off the rails.
The answer to your question, Nick, is yes, she'll have more decision-making authority, and no, she won't be exactly like a city manager.
Okay, and then I like just to comment on the part where Rachel said that, say a department head doesn't necessarily agree with her decision, they can appeal to the BOCC. You know, I trust Rachel completely, but say you get another CAO in there that's a bad CAO, then, you know, you would want that option open.
I think that option is always open. If you don't like something, you could go over her head, so to speak. But you do that kind of at your peril too. And you know, if it's habitual, meaning that, you know, somebody, well, I don't like anything she says, I'm going to take you out of the loop and go directly to the board. That'll require some kind of attention just as a personnel matter, in my opinion. You know, that's basic, again, management 101. She'll be in charge of handling these kinds of issues when they come up and deal with them in a rational way, up to and including, you know, if you got the wrong person in that job, then you move to dismiss that person. If it's just an operational, you work through it and you say, okay, here's the process. It's like for your employees, all of you have somebody who reports to you. And if they're trying to go around you, you're going to have to deal with that.
Two comments. Actually, I've got three. So first, congratulations. This is a huge overhaul. And I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of trepidation and other feelings. So we're all going to rally behind you and support you in this because this is a big deal for you. Two other comments. So one, I think that, I mean, just to address the elephant in the room, there have been a lot of department heads and managers and supervisors that have felt a lot of inequities over central services. And what I like about this is I think it takes that inequity factor out in terms of I'm going to go to my liaison or a different liaison and try to leverage a relationship to make something work to my benefit. I think as we look at this financial situation and the challenges ahead of us, we have to be organized. And I think some of that stuff has been at our peril. The other thing, I would love to see an onboarding book, to Dawn's point about new people coming in. For those of us that have grown up in this organization, we kind of have a feel for things, but I can't imagine coming here from somewhere else. I don't know who's in charge of what. I don't know who to reach out to this. We've had a lot of turnover in some of these central services department. So some sort of just guide, maneuvering, FAQ, whatever would be amazing. I think for all of us that are here, but then in the future for people that we're welcoming to our team.
I got something, Doug.
I got to leave here, don't you?
I do, but I want to get this out. I got a comment and I got a question. So first, and I know there's been a lot of conversation that this whole topic was brought up during leadership team meetings and, you know, I didn't really fully remember having detailed conversations about it. I vaguely remembered, and I'm not sure that every leader in here actually does remember a lot of heavy conversation about it. Looking back at the documents, it certainly talked about central services, but in those documents, it does talk about investigating the possibility. Even when you look at it from a standpoint of when it's actually going to be implemented, it's talked about being implemented more in the second year. You know, it talks about including finance within central services, but we're not talking about it here. So, you know, the short or the point to this is that I think, well, myself personally, and probably a lot of other department heads were a little surprised by this when all of a sudden last Wednesday it popped up. There wasn't any conversation about the timing being rushed a little bit sooner. There wasn't really any conversation in those leadership team meetings about assigning a CAO. So it just kind of caught us all by surprise. Now, not necessarily trying to raise flags or complain about that too terribly much, but you know, naturally it's going to create a ton of questions. You know, there's, you know, I mean, it even memorializes a goal of communication being in this board order. So my hope moving forward is that communication is actually a little bit better about plans to make this significant change. Okay. Now, that being said, overall, I'm generally supportive of this. I think, you know, the points that Sarah made about some efficiencies and inequities, I think ultimately this probably will be the best thing for the county moving forward. Until I can say for sure that I believe wholeheartedly that's the case, I've got a million questions that need to be answered. So when Rachel puts together her package, that's maybe will hopefully answer a lot of questions. You know, but like I said, I'm generally supportive of it, but I'm hoping that you guys recognize you caught us by surprise when you all of a sudden did this. Secondly, and that's kind of more the comment, and it's not trying to chastise anybody, it's asking for better communication moving down the line. What happened last Wednesday is not precisely what's written in this leadership team packet. It's not what we really discussed. We discussed support for investigating. So hopefully communication is better. That being said, my question is directly about money, because although, and Doug, like you mentioned it in the thing, it's not going to save us money right out of the gate. It will create efficiencies to where down the road, in theory, will save us money. And again, I'm supportive of that. And I recognize that you got to, you know, take a big bite now in order to actually solve problems down the line, because you do look forward. But what's not mentioned in that line is this will cost us money initially. This will cost money. To what extent, nobody really knows. And maybe that's going to be part of the plan that Rachel's going to put together, hopefully. But when I want to change something within my office, and I would imagine anybody here, and I have to come to the board and ask for permission, clearly we don't have to do that here because you guys are giving your own permission. But a lot of times I've got to trade. I have to sacrifice one thing. I have to, you know, add another, something like that. So my question is how are we paying for this? Are you guys going to sacrifice something in your budget? Is it coming from somewhere else? What is the plan? Because we do know that most likely, and rightfully so, if you are a CAO and you increase, you know, stuff, your salary is probably going to increase as well. It should. You know, there's probably a lot of unforeseen costs that we'll try to get hashed out, I would imagine, in the plan, but this will cost money. And in a time when we're trying to make hard decisions about either possibly cutting or not hiring or all these different things, we're spending money on this side of things. Where's that money coming from? Is the commissioners looking at cutting some portion of their budget to help pay for this? We talked about a contract with a financial planner or analyst, I think you said, Mary Faith. You know, so there's additional monies that we may be looking at. So where do you guys as commissioners, or Rachel, where do you guys envision the money coming from? Yeah, that's my question following my comment.
Well, I'll give you a quick answer and then the others can answer as well, and maybe the treasurer. I without going back, and I haven't done this in some detail, but if you look at the commissioner's budget, I think we will remain within that budget. For example, each of us of the three have certain travel allotments. I haven't used hardly any of it. I don't charge for driving around the county, and I haven't gone to any national conferences. I do have a couple coming up this fall I might go to, but there'll be several $1,000s there. And I don't know about the others, and even if we overexpended, which I don't think we will, I don't see that as part of the big picture. Well, it would be part of this year's budget, but if you look at the big picture in the long run, I think we save money. And it's one of those things, you have to invest a little bit of money. But to your exact question of where's the money going to come from, it will come out of the commissioner's budget. And if we end up, say, $25,000 over our full budget for this fiscal year, 25,000 will have to come out of the general fund or contingencies elsewhere. And so it's like anything else, we manage it as we go. And it could be we'll come out even, it could be we'll be fine, it could be we'll be in the hole by 20 or 30,000 bucks. I don't know. I see this, her salary adjustment will be, I don't know what the number will be, and I'm not gonna put a number on the table now, but I see that as pretty minimal stuff in the big, long-term picture. Now, we've asked each one of you to look deep into your own departments, and if you can save a few $1,000 here and there and add it together, it's a big number. It becomes a big number. So I get your point that we're asking you to do stuff. We're doing exactly the opposite. And what gives us the right to do that?
That kind of at its core.
Yeah, and I can't give you a direct answer, Sheriff, dollar for dollar, except that we're taking the long view. And so I'm gonna ask my commissioners to help answer that question. That's a hard question.
It's an excellent question. And so to the first part of your comment, you're absolutely right. We didn't, when we were talking about this together as a group, we didn't envision it. I personally didn't envision it happening immediately. So it's probably shocking to actually see our county government moving with some speed because it never happens. So, but as we were looking at it, once we realized, oh, this is the model, this is the thing, and that we want to do, this is the right thing for us. And then we realized all the things that are happening right now, like the timing of it, that we're trying to hire an IS director. We need to hire an HR director. We have all these things that we identified in the strategic plan and in the financial workshops that we need to get working on right now, not later. Then that made it, then the obvious question arose like, well, why would we wait? We should just do this right now. And, not finally, you'll see that we're not, that we haven't set it in stone, that we've set it up for a trial run. And so we want to see if it works. If it works, it'll start working right away and we'll all benefit from it. If for some reason it doesn't work, which I don't anticipate, but if that's true, then we can reverse course. But to your point, you're absolutely right. It is rare for us to move quickly on something, but it seemed like the timing is now. The timing was right. There would be no advantage in waiting.
And
So
to be fair, I do think that the timing was important. I think with the two director positions you needed to hire, I don't necessarily have a problem with the timing. And I think it's a great idea to do this as a trial run because, we're changing significantly the way we're doing business. So to commit to it just in case, that'd be tough. But just as an example, I talked to a couple of different department heads within the days following that meeting. They had no idea that you guys made that decision. No idea that how they were going to handle their business as a county, department head or political or elected official. They had no idea that happened. That's what I'm talking about is the notification, the communication with the people that, how we're going to do our jobs moving forward is going to change drastically. And a couple of them had no idea because they weren't tuned into the board briefing. So it's communication. I agree with the timing of it. I think it's important to strike while the iron's hot. I love the fact that you're doing it not experimental, but a temporary kind of a way. I think Rachel's the right fit for it. It allows us to go right into that move. There is a lot of stuff that will become more efficient. Hopefully the inequities won't be an issue because to Nick's point, what if you get a bad one in there that does have bias and does relay that inequities and partners up with somebody else, that you want to avoid that. So hopefully setting it up that way, squared away. So I don't think that your timing was bad. I think that it was important given all the situations. Again, it's more or less the communication. The fact that a lot of us had no idea. I just happened to tune in and I happened to catch it. And I was kind of floored by the fact that, oh my God, this is a huge change. Where did this come from? So, and like I said, I talked to a couple other leaders and if they weren't in there, they had no idea that it even happened. So that's my biggest thing about that comment is just the communication.
And you're absolutely right. And we identified, all of us in the strategic plan, that communication is an area where we're lacking. And it's hit and miss, you know, it isn't completely absent, but it's hit and miss. But in this situation, we're moving so fast that we needed to talk about it in the board briefing. And we didn't want to, I suppose, you know, in retrospect, we can review how we could have done differently, but we didn't want to notify leaders that we're moving into this change until we talked about it in a public meeting. And we're not going to notify people that something has happened until we've actually voted on it, because you don't know until the actual vote, which is this week. So the timing of it is just odd, but you're right. Communication, we have so much room for improvement in communication. You're totally right.
I think an email to the leadership team saying, hey, we're discussing possible significant changes at this board briefing. If you have any chance to come listen, come listen.
Yeah.
That would have been appreciated and probably would have nullified my comment completely.
Okay,
So,
excellent point. Thank
Just a simple email. I don't want to leave if you had something to say too. I want to give, okay.
Ellen, Commissioner Olson?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I didn't have anything to report out either, so.
One second before you
Oh,
leave.
sure.
Just as a point of order, I recently read an OAR that identifies the sheriff as the CEO of the county in which he serves.
It's actually an ORS state.
Oh, thank you. ORS. I just recently read it and I thought, oh my gosh, we refer to ourselves as the CEOs on a regular basis. It probably rubs you wrong on a regular basis. You've never said anything about it. To your credit.
I'm not an egotistical person, so I don't need that
appreciate that.
status, but it's factually incorrect that CEO is, you know, so.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, yeah, that you've never said, hey, wait a minute, it's not you guys. So, yeah, so thanks. I just wanted to say that.
I've heard him say it. So.
You don't count.
Have to get into place right after Oregon became a state. I think, or something like that.
Maybe.
Okay, so now let's do our round table. I'll start with people online. I can't see them all. I'll go this way. Okay, how about Aubrey, our DA? You have anything for the group today?
Not today, thank you.
Okay, then we have Chris Lady. Oh, Chris. All right, well, let's go on down, Jacqueline Rogers, anything?
No updates for Justice Court today, thank you.
Thank you. Joel?
Nothing for the group today. Thank you, Commissioner.
Welcome. Under Sheriff Matt, the sheriff just left, so do you have anything you needed to add today?
Nothing for me, sir.
Okay, and the rest, I think, are.
Commissioner.
Here.
Commissioner, the top one is Christie.
Oh, nice. The phone number is Christie, she said. If
Oh,
you wanna
Christie's,
invite
okay,
Christie.
okay, yeah, Christie. County Clerk Christie, are you there? She's probably working on an election. That's what's coming up.
For 6.
All right, well, let's go just around this way, and then we'll do the commissioners last. So let's go to our treasurer.
Nope, I have nothing.
Nothing, okay. But you read so
I think we've talked enough about my work.
All right, well, let's go to our assessor. We've got 2 of them here, one new one and a almost.
Yes, the
Almost gone.
assessor, the outgoing assessor and the incoming assessor. Well, we balance the values. This is an important time of year for assessment taxation. We balance the values for over 30,000 accounts for the 2024 assessment roll. On October 1st of 2024, we certified the taxes for the 2024-25 tax year. We certified the taxes to the Oregon Department of Revenue And that includes our real property role, personal property role, manufactured structure role, and the utility role. For taxes this year, $74,650,000, rounded a little bit, was levied for taxing districts of Tillamook County. That's a 1.7% increase. And the reason I believe for that low of an increase was the road bond request was down this year, like, went from $1.5 million to 300,000. The library bond was paid off last year, so it's not in this year, yay. And there was a Nesco and water bond that was paid off last year. Our real market value in Tillamook County is almost $13 billion for taxable value. I look back when, not that long ago, it was 8. So value has just gone crazy, I think, in all of our coastal counties. The assessed value this year is approximately $6.5 billion. That's a 4% increase from last year. The median real market value for all residential property, it's a calculation that's done on our Table 7 cell report to the Department of Revenue. So the median real market value for all residential improved property was $586,800 for the median. And just as a gauge for that, 2 years ago, it was $480,000. The tax statement file was sent to the printer last Friday, maybe Thursday afternoon.
Friday.
And tax statements should be mailed next week.
They are online if anybody wants to pay.
Online.
Sure.
It can be paid, and the new information is there. As we get the graphs and charts and all the combined information, we'll get it up on the website too. So you'll probably be getting your tax statement about the same time you get your ballot, because I think Christie's not on, but
Can you change that?
Timing is everything. Taxes are due November 15th. And then as soon as possible, we're going to be creating the new 2025 assessment roll. And our process starts all over again. I want to thank my amazing staff. We've just got some great people in the office that have been in the office a long time. We accomplished all of this and all these reports and compiling the numbers basically with 3 people less than we had before. That was 2 resignations and a retirement. And it was really 5 people less because we had 2 people on maternity leave. So, the people, yeah, everybody stepped up. I also wanted to talk a little bit about hiring. So the chief appraiser retired and we hired Robert Buckingham as our chief appraiser. We are also, Cassandra will soon be the assessor, and so we have hired Sandra Gollin as our chief deputy of assessment and taxation. And we're actively recruiting for 2 appraisers and 1 tax accounting clerk or accounting tax, depending on the experience. And what I'm just super excited about is we externally recruited for these positions and we hired internal candidates. Both Robin and Sandra have a lot of years of experience. It's such a good feeling as the boss to say that person is the best person. And so I'm super excited for where this office is going to go. And, the assessor's not really a person. It's, non-affiliated, non-partisan, but we work and we do the job and we bring in the tax dollar every year. So I just wanted to say, as currently the longest serving county official, elected official, that, you know, I've seen the long term. I've been doing this for 13 years. It gets emotional, you know, it's a lot of stuff with people say, we've never done this before, but we have. It just, we look at the big picture and we think, oh, that's a great idea. And, you know, maybe it is, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. We've got to hope for the best and do the best we can. I think all of us at this table do the best we can every day. We're always thinking of how can we do less? How can we not do something that we're statutorily required to do because we don't have any money? And I too was watching the meeting last Wednesday, and the first thing that came to my mind was, I mean, after listening to your wonderful presentation about a horrible situation that is being pressed upon us as a county and lots of counties, and how are we going to make it through, and been dealing with it for so long, and we're still dealing with it, and it could be devastating to the county. We're already dealing with it. There's a few issues with sewer in the city of Tillamook that we're probably going to have to say, yeah, your lot is worthless because you can't build, because there's no sewer line, you can't connect to it, and you can't put in a septic system. So, you know, those people are going to come to the assessor and say, my property's worthless, and the assessor's going to say, yeah, it kind of is. These are things we have to deal with all the time. But during that meeting, I was just going to say, and we're at the world right now, that, you know, people talk about politicians talking out of both sides of our mouths, you know, and we do, and it's all opinion. And I was thinking with this change that is being discussed today, that I really felt also that I didn't have enough information to even form an opinion about it. Like I said, I've seen the long haul, I've seen the commissioners at budgeting time say we don't have any money, but we need to give this person a raise. And that's kind of to Cassandra's point. I think that the rest of us here with really good staff that work hard and come to work every day and have good work ethic, them, you know, saying, what about me? And, you know, as a department head, I care about my people, and I've tried. I can think of multiple situations where I have tried, where roles have changed and tried to make things better, and was basically told, no, we don't have the money, we can't do it. So I just think we all need to just think about that again in our life. Yeah, we're politicians, and we're here to do the best we can do. And we're elected every 4 years by everybody in the county, and we have to do the best for everybody. It's just when it comes down to that, what about me? What about my department? You know, because like I said, we did what we've done every year with 17 people with basically 12 or 11. I mean, and you know, we've done it and we did it. Hopefully we get staffed up and people trained. And we've had the IS director position in turmoil. We've had the HR position in turmoil. I hope we get good people. I hope we get them in the office. I need to go to the HR about a problem. I'm not an HR specialist, but I've got 17 people in theory that, you know, we have to be responsive to and care for, and we want to be happy. And when people see us talking about, and I remember the prior treasurer giving us a spreadsheet every year for 5 years that we're gonna be broke in 5 years. Well, we never were. We always figured it out. And we've got to, and what we do, what's the saying, what we do to the least of us, we do to all of us. You know, my appraisers can go to Clatsop County and make $5 an hour more. It's not that big of a drive. And those are the things when I'm looking at my people and the lowest paid of my people. Yeah, they need a raise. You know, they can't make it on $20 an hour, but they are, and they're here every day, and they help us get the job done. And I just want to thank them for all they do. And like guess I'll stop.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for your message, and also thanks for your long-standing service. I don't know whether you intend to retire early, and maybe you don't know either, but just on the off chance that we don't have this chance as a group again to say this to you, I want to thank you for your excellent, long-standing service to the county.
And I remember somebody telling me the first year when I was probably in my office crying after a budget meeting because I couldn't hire the staff back or whatever. And, they said, you wanted this, you ran for this, you asked for this. And it's true. And I've enjoyed it most of the time. Of course, with every job, there's those times that you don't. And I don't want a retirement party, and I'm not leaving. I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna do something, and I'm just, it's gonna be a different chapter, and I'm looking forward to it. And I miss everybody. I'm gonna miss the social part of it, but I'll see y'all. I'll see y'all around.
So I have one question. Which organization now is the largest real taxpayer? Would it be the Creamery or PUD? I know it goes back and forth.
I ran that and I was thinking, I don't think I brought it.
Well, I'll just ask the question. We don't have
Right.
the answer right now. That's really good at that.
Yeah.
I thought you'd know off the top of your head.
Well, they change every year, and the only
Denise,
reason I know.
do you see how many reports she's running? Like she's got,
And I did run that report, and I know Stimson, the Creamery, PUD, the one that I always have to look up, Store Capital, which I believe is the jerky factory in Bay City. Yeah, we got a lot of good, and those all kind of rotate depending on that.
Well, I'm just curious.
Mhm.
Well, let's keep going here, so.
Yeah. I just want to say, so over the next couple of weeks, statements will go out hopefully by October 18th. We have probably upwards of 2,000 counter visits, so it's a lot of people in the courthouse coming in up until November 15th. So I know it's never a good time, but if the troop study could come out later in November, that would be great. But you do what you need to do. We're so busy in November. I mean, it's crazy. So that's what we have going on right now.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, just a few brief comments. First of all, October 1st was supposedly the end of our busy season. It really has calmed down quite a bit. But again, everything's new for me, so I'm just learning slow as I go along. But we've cut staff adequately. We've consolidated our park grounds so that there's not as much space to reserve. And we've taken inventories so we know where we are and what we need to get. I think one of the biggest things that we've done is as a park maintenance staff, we've gone through all of our park maintenance projects. There's over 50 of those. We've decided to hone in on what we think is the top 10. We're working through that list now. And I think that one of the first ones after the busy season was over was to address diseased trees within our campgrounds. And so that was taking place last week. And so they've really started to move forward on that. Have done a great job. I think for the most part, we're, because last month was still busy for us, we're waiting to see what the end numbers look like, to see how we did financially over the course of the season. But I'm confident based on what I've seen now that we've actually done real well. I think what surprised me is that there still are a few soft spots that we have. For example, like refunds. Last time I checked, we were still 1,000 refunds behind. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, well, how can we do this better, right? And one of the things that we're looking at is a change in possible software for a reservation system so that the software, it enables refunds to happen automatically, much like what State Parks does. We haven't had that. We haven't had that for a long time. We need to make changes, and we're exploring the best possibilities. And with that, I think also comes the phone calls. They're mad. They're upset. Well, we were there 2 months ago and I haven't got my refund yet. It's like, all right, we're working on it. It's one of our top priorities. But otherwise, I think that things are going real well. We've got like I'm hearing, we've got great staff. They're very dedicated. They show up for work every day plus. We're moving things forward. We've got the RFP out for the traffic rerouting project. That is into its third week. I believe in a week and a half, we're gonna get those finished proposals back, start the grading process and go through that. So that's kind of fun and exciting. In fact, it's really fun and exciting. We've got some more ideas in our mind to move forward as well. So anyway, things are good in parks, and appreciate all the support I've got from Central Services. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions for him? All right, Nick.
Okay, so the BFW American Legion and my office were having the Veterans Day event at the Tillamook Air Museum. So Jeff Spink will be there talking about the SR-71 Blackbird, and also there'll be another gentleman there with his SR-71 memorabilia, which should be pretty cool. Breakfast will be from 8 to 10:45. Then the flyover is going to be around 10:45, and the ceremony will start at 11. Bert Darnell is bringing his traveling air museum to the event, so that should be pretty cool. So I'm working with veterans right now with the ODV emergency grant. Like Denise was saying, the city, there's a lot of veterans in the city that their laterals are compromised. So we're working with contractors, ODV emergency grant, and the sewage department in the city to try to get them the best price to fix their laterals. That's it.
Thank you. Questions? Hey, Jeff.
All right, so just a couple things. Our NGO numbers continue to decline, so we do need to start making a push. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so we need to be keeping an eye out. It's really important that staff get in there and complete their NGO trainings every month. There's a lot going on, and NGO does a really good job of keeping us up on the latest, greatest ways that people are trying to mess with us. The other thing is, please be patient with IS for the near future. Due to some unforeseen issues, we're going to be a bit short-staffed for a little while. Lots of HIPAA stuff and just things that we hadn't predicted. So we're going to do our best to keep going with things, but yeah, we're a little bit down for the foreseeable futures. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Paul, you got something to add?
I just want to say, I haven't been in one of these meetings. I really appreciate that we have department heads that are willing to ask questions that may be maybe a little harsh or a little hard. And I think that it's, I just love that we have this ability to talk about things that concern us. I think communication is definitely where we can improve, and hopefully me coming to the table can help with that. I think a lot of the concerns could have been answered with an email or could have been solved, but I love that we have department heads that are willing to let us know as commissioners what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right. But we can learn a lot from their critiques. So I really appreciate everybody doing that.
I don't really have anything for the group. I think things are going pretty well in our office, unless somebody tells me otherwise.
I'll ask you, how many caseload, what's your caseload now? How many youngsters are in trouble?
They're creeping up a little bit now that school's back in session. Oh, you would ask me that. I don't have any numbers in front of me.
Sorry.
I can get back to you on that.
Well, no, I mean, is it, you said it's going down, but I'm just curious, is it 25 or 62?
So probably we have, I would guess around 50 kids on some level of 50 kids with open referrals in our office right now. And that's historically, that's a low number.
So we're in a down.
Ballot Measure 110 and COVID just, it decimated the juvenile department numbers across the state.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's go to library.
Well, we are continuing in the effort to waterproof the main library. And that is going well at this point. I think they're at the point where most of the siding work is done and they are painting. There's a few spots that still need to get finished, just waiting on some materials. And then the next step is going to be the replacement of the section of roof over top of the very front of the library. They have a plan to make that to do that in a way that is as little disruption as possible for people. I'm working through the permitting process, so they will hopefully work through all of that in the next little while. And then we'll have a pre-construction meeting to talk about what that's going to mean. I'm not sure if it'll close down the bookstore for periods of time. I think it seems like, I can't imagine not, but we'll find out. But hopefully all that'll be in good time for all the rain. So looking forward to being able to keep the inside of the building dry. And then you may or may not know that Halloween is the single biggest day at the library in terms of foot traffic coming through the library. Every year we take part in the downtown celebration, and it just is. I think of it as one of those. I come from a retail background as well, right? So I think of like, what are those events that bring everyone in? They get a chance to just be in the building and be thinking about it. So I think of that as an opportunity for us to make sure that people know that the library is there. You can get an account, you can check out materials, etc. So this year we will be doing it again, and we'll be excited to. We have an underwater, a spooky underwater theme for our meeting rooms. People can walk through. There'll be candy, and then there will be candy that is privately bought, I will say, not publicly expended candy. And and just a chance for people to come in, have a good time, and have a positive experience at the library. So we're excited for that. You should all come down, get dressed up, have fun with us.
All right, thank you. Okay, Sarah.
Thank you. So Doug, I don't know when Domino's is opening.
October 15th, I thought on Facebook.
Facebook official.
Facebook official was it was their post. It was their post, right? Yeah, so they at least think so. So Sarah.
I know that's what
They
everybody
put it
wants
out
to
there.
know. Okay, perfect. We're just, we're working with them to get that open. Couple of other projects. We're still seeing a lot of residential projects, but we have some huge commercial projects that are continuing besides Domino's. We have the Oregon Youth Authority has a big project. We have the college, the nursing, the building that's going on. We have an industrial warehouse shipping project at the port. It's been on Facebook. Is it? Yes. So Amazon is coming to Tillamook. For those of you who may not know, I think it's a 36,000 square foot warehouse and distribution center.
3 to 5 years.
Short-term rentals, just want to thank Cassandra, who's here. So we're finishing the board order, finished all of our community meetings. I did miss, I'm going to Cape Mears. Okay. In a week. But getting ready to bring that order back to update. In terms of the BIOP, I will be at the League of Oregon Cities Conference presenting a week from Friday. They have paid for my trip except for my gas and mileage. So I said I don't have it in the budget, but if you want me to come talk, you gotta help me out. So they're doing that, which is great.
We'll take it out of the sheriff's budget.
Although it could be considered.
Not here.
And
I'm
then-
still here. Don't take it out of the budget.
Gosh, I would never do that. We are trying to get people with permits in as quickly as possible. As I said, if you want to hear the updates, I shared a bunch at the board briefing this last Wednesday. I think I talked for about an hour. Thank you. But since the end of July, I've held over 50 meetings or presented just to talk about the biome. And I've got that. I was at 12 last week, and that's grown to almost 20 now for the month of October. But we are trying to get people in that are in these areas that want to permit projects. So if as people are realizing what this means, if someone's talking to you friends, family, somebody on the street, please have them come to our office because that December 1st date, we don't know what we're gonna do yet. But trying to get as many permit applications in as possible in those areas. And then the housing grant is getting ready to open. So I believe that will happen this week. Had a great housing commission meeting to talk about that on Thursday. So we've got that going on. And then I will be circling back around to Public Works, Community Health. And I'm missing somebody to get the final pieces for our code and the sheriff's office, Matt and Josh, to get the final pieces for code enforcement updates underway. So we have an ordinance that we've been working on. As you all know, code enforcement is an area that we are lacking in. Trying to put something together in some sort of centralized program. So that's all.
So Thursday, there's a Northwest Acton whole pack in Banks, and I'll be going over to that. And one of the main topics is the buyout. Are you invited to that or not?
I don't-
There's somebody, but I don't remember his name.
They may have invited, it might be Frank or someone else coming to talk about it, which is good, because if there should be more than just me.
Okay, I don't remember the name, but
Yeah, I'll have to look and see. I know I've given a few Colpack presentations, so they might just be carrying that over. Commissioners, Margaret Magruder and Leanne Thompson have also been starting to pick up that ball and share, so let me know if you need me. I'm not sure what I have going on Thursday morning, but
okay, well, I've got the agenda and all that. I just didn't see your name on it. That's unusual because you're the brains of the whole outfit.
the better
Base of the
numbers,
ball.
right? Yeah.
And you are, for those of you who don't know, Sarah truly is an acknowledged expert. Her name comes up at differently, hence she's going to the League of Oregon Cities and others, and they say, well, it's the heavy hand of federal government is coming down upon us, and who knows about it, and your name comes up. They say, okay, let's do the commissioners, and then I think we'll get ready to wrap up. Go ahead.
I don't have a whole lot more. I realized I forgot to talk about trick or treat when I was doing my HR, so you all should have gotten the email from McKinsey. Keep your eyes out for emails from her, just reminding everybody the trick or treat is coming with the courthouse intent to participate. She has information related to that in that email. And I also wanted to bring up the holiday party because we always seem to forget till we're right on top of it. Right? Yeah, I know. So I'm just putting that out there as to begin thinking about that, and you'll probably get an outreach on that as well. I think Commissioner Bell, you have done a great job in the past of working with the Pioneer Museum to say about the Festival of Trees. We want to know if you're willing to do that again. Jeff, I know you have always had a holiday party role. I'm not sure who else was on the committee with you last year. But if you're willing to continue to serve in that capacity, it would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. And so if you were part of all of that fun last year, please reach out to Jeff and join him in kind of bringing that together. So Mackenzie again will be the person in HR if you want to reach out and connect with Mackenzie to start thinking about that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Didn't want to miss those. Other than that, just timber revenue, we continue to have small table discussions. We have requested an additional discussion with the governor's office as we prepare to head into the legislative session, hoping that we can find a bill that we can push forward. We have 3 of them that are in a holding place right now. We have a committee bill, a representative's bill, and a senator's bill, all that are waiting for us to come up with legislation to say what the answer is. And we continue to struggle to get through that. So more to come hopefully, but there is a small table group this Friday where I believe we will sit with the governor's staff again and just say we've all been at this for over a year now and we don't have a solution. What is the next step? Anything that has been brought forward, the legislators have said, yeah, we're not going there. If it touches schools, which was one of the last options that was out there, was to try to have schools go on equalization so that they would have kept their funding, but the local timber revenue could have stayed local. And legislators across the counties have said, no, if it even looks like it touches schools, we're not going to let that happen, even if there is a backfill mechanism. So that was the last one that was on the table. And we are going back to the table, see if we can find something else to put on the table. So that work continues. And again, we have some bills ready. We've got between now and December to figure out what to do with them. So that continues to happen. With that, I will call again.
Well,
So let me take a quick poll. Do we all think we should have the Christmas party at the Pioneer Museum?
I liked it.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Easy way to do it.
Yeah,
It was nice to see the trees.
yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So yes is the answer. I'll go and ask if we can use the facility and find out. Okay, what I want to mention today is the Great American Shakeout, which is October 17th at 10:17 a.m. And I want to ask all of you and your departments to observe the Great American Shakeout. And by that, I mean at 10:17, pretend there's an earthquake and do what we should do if we experience an earthquake. So, stop, drop, and take cover. And right, stay away from the windows.
What are you doing, jump out the
Getting out.
window? No. On the first floor, maybe.
By staff, we're getting out of here because this place is coming down.
So here's the point. That I don't know that we have any, actually, I should know this, but I can't think of any county facilities in the tsunami inundation zone except for maybe South County Public Works.
The one.
Parkview.
Parkview.
Yeah, Rockaway Beach Library.
Right.
Rockaway Beach Libraries and.
So, okay, all right,
It's in
and
the
of
city
course,
libraries.
Fairview,
Oh,
which should have been top of mind.
Yes.
So the county we are promoting a tsunami evacuation drill in coordination with the Great American Shakeout, a county-wide tsunami evacuation drill. And I wish Randy was here to talk about it, but he's not, so I will. So we're encouraging everyone in the county to observe Great American Shakeout as if there were an earthquake at 10:17. For folks who are in a tsunami inundation zone, we're encouraging people to evacuate as you would if there were an earthquake and you're in the evacuation zone, you would get out of the tsunami inundation zone. So please do that. Encourage your staff to do it. Do it yourself. Role model it. Dawn at the library, Dawn's staff did last year. They evacuated across the street because the 3rd Street parking lot is a designated evacuation zone. The folks from the library came off, evacuated to there. All over the county, over 500 people participated last year. And it was slightly embarrassing to me that at the last TC4 meeting where all these plans are happening, somebody said, well, the county's gonna do this, right? It's of course we are. Of course, we're going to observe the Great American Shakeout and evacuate if we're in an evacuation zone. So
Where's your evacuation area? Because I know the Hocourt and Slough, all of this is mapped as a tsunami inundation zone. I don't think it comes to the building, but you're close.
well, this building is not in the inundation zone. So people don't have to leave this building if you're working here. And your building is also not.
Correct.
The hospital is right on the line. So your building is not, but just by a couple blocks.
And what we did last year, because Rockaway Beach is in that inundation zone, and I didn't feel like I could say, Matthew, go all the way to safety in Rockaway Beach because it's kind of far. And you might have people in there, et cetera. And so we just asked him to leave and be thinking about it as if he were going to that and and just kind of reflect on it. So it was a way to kind of acknowledge that needed to happen without making him go all the way.
Okay.
Well, Randy's instructions, if you're here, you should do this, if you're somewhere else, you should do this.
Yes,
Might be
great
helpful.
idea.
Yes. Thank you. And it'll be a great opportunity for you and your staff to learn where your evacuation zone is and just practice it. I'll follow up with you.
Couple questions.
Yes,
What's the date again on that place?
the October 17th.
Okay, thank you. And what about, we have any campers? What do you want us to do with them?
Invite them to participate with you. Yeah, because it's national, the Great American Shakeout is a national observance. And so if you say that we're practicing our tsunami evacuation drill in accordance with the Great American Shakeout. You're invited to come with us.
And Commissioner Bell was just thinking, I did the tsunami hazard overlay loan and a lot of the work with the Combi a couple of years ago. That's a sand hill, right? I mean, to everybody's point, like, do we all know where we're supposed to go in different areas?
Will you please, if you have access to the map,
Yeah, I
or
have all of
where
them.
okay, will you send them to the places where we are in tsunami?
Yep, happy to do that because we require short-term rentals to post them.
Right.
So that's one of the things.
That's great. Can we think of are there any others other than Barbie Jetty? Maybe the Public Works, South County Public Works, Rockaway Library.
Pacific City Library. Because you've got the river, all of that water goes up through the river channels.
Okay, okay. I don't remember seeing it in the map. You could totally be right. Like what in my memory, and this could be totally wrong, they were high enough up the hill that they were just out of it, but I could be wrong. Yes, please. Anything else? Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of things here and then I think we're done. Our radio bond is ready, well, on the ballot. And we've got like 20 appearances scheduled. We've done 10 and we've got 10 to go, where we're several of us, and Paul is helping as well, and the sheriff. And we've got 3 on one night, which made it a little bit logistically difficult. So I'm gonna do one, Paul's gonna do one, and Linda Klazowski from Northside will do one. And we're going to city councils and Kiwanis and Rotary and all those people. And our signs came in, and I now have a box full of signs, and I've ordered 5 big ones that we can put out on April's property and things. The first, I'll just tell you, the only screw up we've had, I ordered a case of signs, and it came in, I opened the box, and it was for a solar project in Minnesota. So the company apologized profusely and sent us the right ones 10 days later. But anyway, stuff happens. So then, let's see, next item, our budget roundtable will be Wednesday, and we'll be asking the budget committee to take some formal actions in November with respect to this fiscal year, and then we'll go into some detail coming up with our options. So it's a pretty important meeting because it's gonna set the table for where we go forward. Tillamook Lightwave, if you remember, is the a lot of the fiber underground, and it's currently a group between the PUD and the county. We have finally received a valuation at the time the port pulled out, and so now we're gonna have a conversation about what's next, and the college is waiting for a decision on that, or some understanding that they want to join Tillamook Lightwave, and we'll have to talk about under what conditions and the equity provisions and all that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is the retirement program that everybody here is on currently. As of January 1, new hires will go into PERS, the Oregon PERS, and there's a 6-month waiting period. So if you're hired in January, you won't be eligible to go in until July. But in the meantime, our system, I picked up a lot of stuff from Jody before she left, and I'd started on RFP, but she's gone, so I'm going to try and finish that over the next few weeks. And essentially, there's 3 parts to our retirement system. There's an organization that invests money primarily in mutual funds, and there's about 20 of them, and it's currently a market rate price of about 100 million, maybe a little bit more. Market's kind of been on a tear lately. And then there's a group in the middle that is the actuary, and that's Millman, and they're the largest actuary in America, and they serve Oregon PERS and lots of state retirement systems across the country. And then there's a 3rd group called Principal, which is based in Des Moines, Iowa. They're a big insurance company, but they administer the plan. And so we're going to do an RFP to look at who does the investing and who manages it. And I think leave Millman where it is, because they're the gold standard. And so we'll write it around that. But the big issues will be, do we change anything? And likely not, although the county has the options and depending again on what happens with the budget and shortfall and all of that. The retirement system currently costs 35.8% of your gross salary. And that is higher than anywhere I've ever seen. It's higher than the medical expenses. Typically on any, when you look at fringe benefits on any organization, it's almost always medical and dental is up here, and then maybe retirement here, and a bunch of other things, VIBA and all that. We have the distinction of having one of the highest, the most rich retirement systems around. Not that that's a bad thing, because it's probably kept a lot of employees in place and all, but it's a pretty big cash draw. But the bigger issue now, when PERS goes, and so far we've hired this year, the last number I heard was pretty close to 60 employees. And so those are, if that trend were to continue, then those 60 employees, and some of them are part-time, those would go into PERS. So there wouldn't be throwing any more cash into the existing. But the people who are in now, like all of us, would continue to pay in, but it would be a diminishing number because they're going to retire. And so there's a mathematical issue of money coming in, money going out, and then the market backing up the difference. Currently, the unfunded liabilities about $20 million. And so we're going to have Millman say, okay, and they've partially done this, but it needs to be updated and say, okay, if you lose 60 employees a year, what does that do to your cash flow, and what does the market have to do? And if you take a high, low, high, medium, and low scenario and say, okay, let's assume the worst, what happens? And does the county have to plan to throw in $5 million, pick a number, sometime over the next few years? Because if the unfunded liability gets too big, then you run the risk of not being able to fund the retirement system, or having some auditor say that, you're beyond what are normal standards of funded versus unfunded. And the way the actuaries look at this is they say, okay, how many people realistically are going to retire? You got right now, I think there's, how many, Sean, 273 people or something. So they're not all going to retire tomorrow, but they are going to retire systematically over some period of time. And so mathematically, you have to figure out how many will go, and will there be adequate funds, and what's their payout, and then how many people are withdrawing their funds, because you can do that too. And so you got all these variables and all these moving parts, and it's a fairly complex situation. And I think the worst case, what the county has to pay attention to is the unfunded liability risky enough that there needs to be a pot of 6 or 8 million or 3 million or some number to backfill if the cash flow and the markets don't support it. Now, some people would say, well, after the next election, depending on who gets elected, the market's going to go down 30%. Maybe they go up. I mean, nobody knows, of course, but you hear all these things that good and bad. But the county, the board is legally a fiduciary for $100 million and 300 plus employees. And so you have to follow under the prudent man rule, which is a legal definition of what you can do. And the county also has an investment policy, which Rachel sent me, and I believe we got the right one. And it tells the investment company what they can do and all. Anyway, so that's kind of a long explanation of a pretty complex issue, but the point is it's going to change. When PERS kicks in, or people start going into PERS, they no longer pay into this one, and that changes the mathematics quite a bit.
And Doug, if I can just chime in real quick, I do have a meeting with Milliman set up for this week.
Oh, good.
Just to, Jody had started this conversation. We'll be requesting that Milliman come and present to the board again as we close the plan and look at what their projections are for the future. The 35 cents that we play in currently is a number that they have created that in theory will, as long as we continue that number, will have us fully funded at the time of funds being needed. And I think it's supposedly a 20-year horizon, but we keep chasing it. So we'll see. But I have that conversation, and then I've also been talking with our attorney related to the documents to close our plan.
I have a call at Millman. So when is your meeting? Maybe I'll go to that.
Let me look at my calendar. I have to tell you, Matt Larrabee from Milliman has a house in Manzanita who's going to be out for the weekend. So I think we're meeting, I think it's tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow at noon.
I'm going somewhere tomorrow at Rotary or something. Anyway, okay. So that's all I have. So does anybody else have anything that we need to bring to the group?
Do you know how many retirees are in the system, like that are retired?
It's like 260. Quite a few, and of course, you know, they're all getting older, and eventually that number will decrease, but then there are others coming because, you know, so it may stay static, and that's part of the mathematical discussion, because when you stop paying in, you start taking out.
Well, it's one of the things, the actuarial table upon which ours is based does not have people living as long as they do live today, which is, I think, one of the reasons that we continue to chase our tail on our unfunded liability. So these are some of the questions we'll be discussing with Milliman. And to Josh's point, when we're going to have that conversation, it will likely be a board briefing and be a great time for you all, to let you know, and you can listen in and understand with us what the challenges are facing the county on our continuing that retirement plan, you know, exactly as it is. So, you know, it'll be decisions that have to be made, and you all are certainly welcome to the conversation.
Anything else?
So at this time, we're moving into an executive session. Joel, can you give us the ORS? And I want to encourage everybody to take cake with you.
I'm waiting for the cake.
So it'll take a minute for everybody to get on.
Good God.
Okay, so it's apple cake with walnuts and it's gluten free, so there's all your allergies and allergies. Bless you. You're welcome.
So, Madam Chair, we'll be going into executive session under ORS 192-660 sub 2A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent.
Thank you, Joel.
Hey,